Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WBENC, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslin. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to Women Who Own It podcast. I am your host, Allison Maslin. I am the founder of Pinnacle Global Network, where we mentor business owners around the world to grow and scale their business. Now, Women Who Own It is brought to you by WBENC, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses. They are business leaders here to support you, the women business leader. And we're here really to make your road just a little bit easier as we bring on some amazing guests that are sharing their journey, their ups, their downs, their wisdom, how they got through the other side. And today we have someone so fantastic. I'm so excited to get to know her and share her wisdom on branding and also growing and scaling her own agency. Robyn Young is a brand strategist and agency founder with a strong creative vision and penchant for crafting fresh, innovative ideas. Her multifaceted experience includes 20 years of branding and marketing for top commercial brands like Nike, Target, UCLA, and Everyday Health. Since launching Young and Company in 2016 from the couch of a shared co-working space, Robyn and her team have worked with over 60 brands to clarify their purpose, cut through the noise of an oversaturated market, and create emotional connection with loyalty with customers. She's dedicated her life to building legacy brands rooted in authenticity and integrity, which is so important these days, and brands that truly impact and inspire, not just another pretty design. So Robyn, welcome to Women Who Own It.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
We are thrilled to have you. And I looked at your website and all that you're up to, and it's so creative and so innovative, which is obviously really important, especially these days. What drew you to this business? I mean, were you always the creative type? Is this something you set out to do, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah, I've always been creative. I started like drawing and painting at a really young age, actually. I didn't really consider art as a career until so much later. Like I was a straight A student and I always thought, oh, this is cute. Like I'm going to do this as my hobby, but then I'm going to get serious. And it was my mom actually who told me, hey, if you love this and you're passionate about it, maybe you should just study art. And I was like, oh, okay. Sure. Why not?
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Yeah. Well done, Mom. So I did end up studying art and communications in college. And then my career trajectory, it doesn't read as like a resume of an agency owner. I think there were a lot of twists and turns. I've been a stylist. I've worked in market research. I worked in editorial for a number of years. I worked as a brand manager for influencers. I worked in, branding and marketing for UCLA. And, so it just, I kind of floated around a lot. And I think that should have been an indication to me that I had a more entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
I had never really grown up around entrepreneurs. So it's not like that was prevalent to me. So I kind of had to get there on my own. So I've always been creative, but I did not know that I was going to start my own business. And it's just kind of funny how it all came together.
Yeah. And, you're taking all this wisdom that you've learned from market research, from working with influencers, and you carry all that forward. So I think that's probably been the best education you could have had.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur. So
yes, that's true.
And
but I didn't figure that out till later.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're up to. And, there are no mistakes. That's the way I look at things. So what made you decide to take the leap and launch Young and Company?
Well, it wasn't the most ideal timing, let me just say. So I left my cushy tech job. Like I had a very, I had a decent job working with a tech school. And I was, steadily making progress towards, climbing the ladder. And it was still considered a startup, but they were already had locations, internationally. So, it was making progress as a company. I quit in 2016, and then 2 weeks later found out that I was pregnant. So, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was not the most ideal time to be starting a business. But I just kind of had I don't know, I had this sort of something inside me, this kind of voice, this just kind of intuition, I guess you could call it. I had so many of these positions, so many of these careers, and I just never felt that I was using 100% of myself. This company did what all companies do. They kind of, in an effort to become more corporate and to scale their business, they want employees to fit into this box. And I never fit into the box. Like
Yes.
I never did. So I
Yes.
just kept
Totally
jumping.
get that. Mhm.
Yeah, I just kept jumping. I kept jumping from job to job to job. And I think, people were asking me like, well, what's wrong with this one? Because on paper, it would look so great. Like I had
Mhm.
no qualms, but it just, how you just have that feeling sometimes like, this isn't it. This isn't it. This
Oh,
just
yeah.
doesn't quite feel right, and I
I
can't
think,
even put my finger on it.
yeah, I think we're kind of, I know I'm unemployable.
Yeah.
I really do. I tried that route, and 2 weeks was the longest. That's really bad that I held a job. So
Yeah.
you totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. The longest I'd ever worked for somebody that wasn't myself was basically 2 years. If we're not counting like the first position I had in market research, where I was technically a freelancer, I worked for them for 7 years, but other
Mhm.
than that, it's been 2 years or less than that. So now I've been with this agency, my own company, for
Yeah.
5 years. It feels like we're going strong.
And so was it just, it said as I introduced you about kind of deciding this when you were at the working in a co-working space, was it something that you just said, hey, I think I can do a better job on my own?
Yeah. I mean, at first, to be honest, at first, I wasn't really sure what I was going to be doing. I thought that I was going to be starting a travel blog because I had spent so much time in editorial. I've spent a lot of time in content, in the building, the creation of content. And I always thought that would be the thing that I would end up doing. But then obviously when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, not going to be doing much exotic travel. That's not going to work out so
Right.
well. So I better go with my plan B. And my plan B was just a branding consultancy. It's just leveraging some of the experience and know-how that I had over, 15, 20 years of doing this in different facets. So I'd love to be able to tell you that I had the foresight, but to be honest, it wasn't that way. It was something that I
Yeah.
just started doing, and then it started taking off. I think what I did notice, having worked for that tech school, because we worked with so many entrepreneurs, I did notice that so many entrepreneurs have such great, brilliant ideas. They have brilliant products. They have no idea how to market them. So I saw my opportunity. I saw that white space, right? These are not folks who can afford to hire these big agencies. And a lot of them fall into the trap of, oh, I'll just hire a designer to create a logo for me and then I'll figure the rest out. I'm like, good luck with that.
Yes.
Right? Because as we'll talk later, a logo is not a brand, and you need a
Yeah.
brand in order to really build leverage and brand equity. Like, to build that relationship with your customers, you need more than a logo. You need a brand. You need to build that reputation with them. So I saw an opportunity for me to fit myself within that space for this niche that really wasn't being served.
Yeah, well, that really leads us into what I do want to talk about, because I feel there is often so much misunderstanding of what a brand is, especially when people get into business. Oh, I need the logo, I need the brochure, and that is my brand. So can you explain how you see the meaning and the value of branding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for starters, it's so much more than a logo. A logo is simply an expression of your brand. It's a signifier, right? Everything that you do, from colors to your tone of voice to the way that your customer service rep answers the phone, and even like internally, the way that you interact with your team members, all of that is your brand, because it all comes back to reputation. It's
Yeah.
perception of who you and your company and your product are. That's your brand. It's the way that people think of you, and what they say is so true. Your brand is not what you say it is; it's what others say it is.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. I heard someone say also too, a brand is what people remember about you when you're not there.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so it really goes with what you're saying. I mean, it's the impact, right, that you make.
Right.
And
And we talk about it too, like, I think it's really easy as human beings for us to think about the tangible elements. Like this is frankly why we started as a creative agency, as opposed to, now 5 years in, we call ourselves a strategic branding agency, because really strategy is the crux of what we do. It's what most people come to work with us on. But most people would come in thinking like, oh, I need a logo, I needed this, I needed that. And I'm like, no, you don't. You need a brand. And the brand is so much more of what's happening below the surface, the things that you don't see. I describe it as like a primer, like for paints. Like you might put the primer on and you don't see it. But then when the paint goes on, you can tell if the primer is not there or if it's not good, right? There's all these
right.
inconsistencies. The
Yes.
paint job looks like crap, right? That
Yeah.
that part, that brand strategy, that positioning, that's the thing. The things that you don't see are so much more important than the things that you do see, because they often lead the things that you do see.
Yeah. It's the underlying essence of everything. That makes
Right.
so much sense.
Right.
Where do you feel, just kind of furthering this discussion on the branding, where do you feel that businesses miss the mark on their own branding, and how is that impacting them?
So I think it's a bit of what I'm talking about. It's they get confused between design and brand, and then they also get confused between marketing and brand. So design, we've talked about. It's
Yes.
more than just the logo, right? Those are all tools. So it's not to say that they aren't important, but they're like a single tool. Your logo is a tool, your colors are a tool, your typography is a tool. All of these things that you do, they're a single tool, right? Now, when it comes to marketing, the difference between branding and marketing is that branding is the heart and soul, right? And marketing is the mouthpiece. You need
Oh,
both.
wow. I love that. That makes
Right.
so much sense. Yeah.
Right. So marketing is the thing that helps you meet the customers, right? But
Yes.
branding is the thing that helps you keep the customers.
Oh, yeah.
So
It is totally different, but I do think you're exactly right. People see that as one and the same.
yeah, they do. It's challenging because the truth of the matter is that they go hand in hand. A strong strategy utilizes both of these things. But frankly, marketing without brand is a short-term strategy. Marketing with brand is the long-term strategy, because especially in this day and age, Allison, it's like if you're selling a product that somebody can get cheaper on Amazon, and they have no real, no real feeling towards your brand, they're going to go for the cheaper option every single time. But
Mhm.
could you imagine, could you imagine trying to get a non-branded phone and feeling the same way that you do going to the store and buying an iPhone?
Right. Yeah, right. Because if you are an iPhone user, you're not ever thinking, you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to get my upgrade. You're never thinking, oh, should I get the Samsung or should I get the iPhone? Because
Right.
you're connected to that brand. Yeah.
Right. And that relationship, it takes a
Mhm.
long time to build. And unfortunately, it's easily broken down too. So you have to be somebody who is in it for the long haul to build that relationship with your customers.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Sure.
What you talk about the importance of the emotional part of marketing. Can you share about that?
Yeah. So a bit of what I was saying here, right? And maybe thinking it in a different context. I can go and get a cup of coffee anywhere, I can get a cheaper cup of coffee anywhere. One might argue I could get a better cup of coffee anywhere. People go to Starbucks because of the emotional connection, because of the experience, right? The way that I feel when I go there and I get my pumpkin spice latte and and there's the music and there's this vibe. That's an emotional purchase. And we're seeing that more and more with customers these days. It's not even just that short-term emotional connection that they make with your product. Now it's also about, what is buying this brand, not this product, this brand. What does that say about me? What does that say about what I value, who I am as a person? If you think that people aren't making emotional decisions about choosing your brand, you've missed the mark. You've totally missed the point of what marketing and branding is. So that's what I think is important to remember, is that almost every purchase, from cars to fashion to even consumer product goods, is an emotional decision that people make when they're selecting one brand over the other, right? So people, it's true that they might go into Target and and be like, I need toothpaste. That's not the point. That's not the part where they're making the emotional decision. The emotional decision comes in when I'm choosing this brand over this brand.
Yeah. And it's interesting, because I was just talking to my own team, our own marketing team, about this, because a couple people on the team have really been pushing me to do more reels on Instagram. And so I did some of them, and I mean, I'm all for staying current and all of that. So we did some of the dancing ones, and I was like, team, this is just not, like, I love to dance, but if someone is looking to choose our company, I don't think they're deciding whether, oh, Allison's a good dancer, so I think we're going to hire her for our business strategy. Yeah. And I think that is that emotional piece, that emotional connection, it has to be real, right? Yeah. Or you do feel that as a consumer, there's some sort of disconnect here. We can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, and now we're really going into a different part of the question, which goes, when you're entering a new platform, how do you be authentic to yourself? So if you want that emotional connection with customers, it's challenging, because you have to both be willing to try new things, but also know who you are as a brand, as a person. I mean, you are a brand, Allison, right? Like, so you showing up as your authentic self is you showing up as your brand, right? So I think the important part is, if you're gonna try something new, and I'm all for it, try something new with these trends, but how do you make it your own? How do you take it and make it your own? Right. So even if you're gonna, so many of these like trending posts on TikTok, they're cute and they can get you leverage. They can, these things can go viral, they can get you audience. But as you mentioned, like, how is this actually helping people to connect with either me on an emotional level or my brand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think these are really some important questions. And obviously that's where you come in as someone's branding expert. I'd like to kind of shift a little bit, talking about you as a businesswoman, as a business leader, building your own company. What has been, one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome as the CEO of your own business?
I mean, starting with no money didn't help.
Yeah.
When I started, I had no money. I mean, literally none, like $45. So good. Yeah. So I was like, okay, good. Really setting myself up for success here. And God love my husband. He was, we were not rolling in the Gucci, like, he's a fireman. So let's be clear that doesn't get you far in a town like LA. But he was like, hey, if you want to try and see this through, I will cover us. I will cover our expenses for a few months while you're figuring this out, basically. So, so he was very supportive in that way. And I had to make it work quickly. So I will say that one of the biggest challenges that I had was just not having a lot of room in the beginning to just figure things out. I had to figure them out really quickly. And I had to start doing things that just produce revenue quickly. And that it made it challenging at the very beginning. Now I'm in a very different position where I can take those risks, but in full transparency, it's very challenging to do that at the beginning. You need some room to try things out, to learn who you are as a brand, to figure out what your customer base wants. And maybe in that same vein, I came in expecting that I had to do things a certain way. I had, this and this and this agency owner all did it this way. And so I have to do it that way too. I went a long time not recognizing that my competitive edge could be that I wasn't doing it the same way that they were doing it. And that could be a value to my customers because I would find new, maybe better ways of doing things.
Yeah, I totally concur with where you're at. I mean, I was a single mom. I had no money. And I honestly think when I look back, I'm grateful for that because I think when you have your back against the wall, like you have to figure it out. There wasn't any going, well, I'll get to it next week. No, it's today because you got to pay rent,
Right. Right.
So, but I do think too, to your point, that a lot of times in business, it's very natural to look at what the competition is doing. And you can feel like that FOMO, oh my gosh, I got to be doing this. We need to be doing this instead of what we tell our clients to do in Pinnacle is look at what the competition is not doing and do that because we're in such a disruptive marketplace. You have to stand out.
Right. And I mean, just doing what your competitors are doing won't work as far as looking for that competitive edge. If you're always just doing what they do, that's not a competitive edge. It's not a way to stand out from the competition. And you have to break away from the noise. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't advertise on the same channels. You can't have the presence on the same platforms, but you have to find a way to make it your own. And one of the most challenging parts about that is knowing who you are. What is that unique positioning? How do you take that thing and make it sticky and digestible? Because if you have a complex message, then you're asking your consumers, your customers, your audience to use their brain power to try and figure it out. And we don't want that. Like consumers don't want that. They want something that reinforces their values and the way that they see the world and who they think that they are as a person. They want something that does that easily. Remember, it's not the best product that wins. It's the product with the most compelling and easily digestible message that wins.
Yeah. I mean, look at, I know that I have definitely been one of those people. If I'm shopping for wine, I'm like, what's the prettiest label? So those things that are going to catch your eye. Then of course you've got to back it up with a good product so that you're going to want to buy it again. Right. But, speaking of marketing strategies, what have been some of the best things that you've done to grow your own company?
Here's the funny thing. I've never done any advertising, not up until now. So, and it's my opinion that until you reach a certain point as a service provider, whether you're a coach or an agency owner or whatever, you really have no business running ads until you hit a certain threshold. And that could be, you're seeing 20, 30K in revenue. So we're just at this point now where I'm like, okay, now we're ready to start going and testing out some ads. Otherwise, you're entering a space that is very pay to play. It's incredibly saturated. So I knew already a bit about this. And I was like, I'm not going to go that route, or at least I'm not going to start there. So I instead started with direct outreach, with networking. So I would join organizations and I would go in, no agenda. I would go in and I would create these connections. And the first thing I would do is say, how can I add value for you? And I built a network of people that I could refer these folks to, right? So that I could add value for them. And if it was with my own service genuinely, then yes, I would recommend my service to them. And I think they appreciated the authenticity, the way that I just showed up to say, hey, I want to add value for you because I want to build a connection, right? And that I would be really real about the fact like, hey, I don't think you're ready for my service yet. Let me know when you get to this point though, and I'm happy to help you. But for the point that you're at now, go talk to this person or go talk to this coach. So I built my business just referring other people who would then refer people to me.
And I would imagine people really respected your integrity with that. And, I so glad you shared this, which really leads us into WBENC, because that's what WBENC is all about, is relationships and fostering those relationships. But I do feel like sometimes we feel like marketing has to be so complex, but at the end of the day, it's a connection with someone. And I think too, in networking, sometimes people get frustrated because they go in with an intention of, okay, I've got to, leave with this many leads and, this many set appointments. And I love what you did is that you just showed up and said, how can I support you? And I would imagine that actually got you so much further.
It really did, because it created value for two people, if you think about it, because I'm not only creating value for the person that I'm talking to, I'm creating value for the person I'm referring to. So effectively, I was building two relationships there, right? So, I think obviously there's very different strategies depending on what kind of business you're running, but service-based, most of the people I talk to, mainly get their clients from referrals or direct outreach. I just took a different way. I didn't cold email people. Like cold messaging people through LinkedIn. Yes, I've heard it works if you do, thousands of these, but I'm telling you, for the same amount of time that you're spending doing that, you could be going out, creating real relationships, real connections with people, providing them value. It doesn't actually take that much to just refer them to somebody, a resource, a person, another expert. Or, again, like in some cases, they would get on the phone with me and they'd be like, no, actually, I saw that you're in branding. This is what I want to talk about. So going in, not with an agenda, it builds authority for you. It shows that you're not so desperate for the work. It shows that you're willing to play the long game. And that was the thing for me. I was willing to play the long game. So at first, yes, it was, let me get a couple of these like quick wins so that I can just keep the lights on. But then the longer term strategy was, let me really focus on making some connections. And that's where I started. I emailed out my entire Gmail contact list. And I just said, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'll offer you a free cup of coffee in exchange for just having a conversation with me and me just adding value for you. Let me know how I can help you. And that's the only thing I want to accomplish in that conversation. And it worked.
Yeah. I mean, I think treat it like you're making friends, and it's actually so enjoyable that way. There's a great book, you may have read it, by Bob Berg. It's called The Go-Giver.
No, but I love that.
You need to read it, or anyone listening. And there's a whole series. There's a Go-Giver in sales, Go-Giver in leadership. And it's all about really showing up in your business on how can I support you? I mean, that's really the underlying tenet of everything, although it's a parable and it's just incredibly powerful. We give it to all of our clients, and it really is a game changer. I think it takes the pressure off of feeling like you have to have the savvy conversation and you have to know this sales strategy and that, instead of just showing up in your humanness. And being that person that is the go-giver, as we say. So, and how has WBENC been supportive for you as a businesswoman?
Yeah. Funny enough, I have not used it for procurement. Not at all. I use it for the networking though. And in that way, it's opened up some good, some doors for me. And candidly, it hasn't fed me any business yet. I've only been a member for a couple of years. So in my strategy, it can take a while for those relationships to really, turn into anything, to become fruitful. So, It has led me, though, it has opened me up to other relationships. I've gained mentors, I've gained other entrepreneur friends through it. I've gained access to events that I might not otherwise have been able to, both as an attendee and as a speaker. So it's been valuable in those ways, not necessarily just business. And I think that's that's another thing to note too, is that not everything is just going to be about those hard results, right? Not every opportunity that comes your way is going to be, oh, this is beneficial to me only if it provides a sale.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because the seeds that you plant now with those relationships could come to fruition a year from now.
Yeah.
Or 2 years from now, when somebody thinks about you, when somebody has a need. I think with WBENC, I know for myself, I've been certified for 4 years, and it took about a year and a half to 2 years of really cultivating those relationships. And, obviously here as hosting the podcast has been wonderful. But, there's so many things that WBENC offers with the networking, definitely, like you said, the different events and things like that. And of course, the corporate partnerships, but that does take, that's a whole strategy in itself. So
yes,
maybe
right.
the next time I have you on the show, you will have gone down that road as well too, because there's a lot of corporations out there that need branding.
I know, it's entirely possible.
Yeah. And so with so many choices, as we kind of wrap this up, we're going to be heading into a new year here soon. And with so many choices in marketing and advertising and branding, as we approach the new year, where should a business start to make sure they're making that visibility count?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, if you haven't worked on strategy before, you have to work on strategy. And here's the thing. I think it's very easy for people to be like, oh, I've got a mission statement. Oh, I've got a, vision statement. Oh, I've got core values. Okay, I've got a strategy. They're a little bit more like puzzle pieces, right? It's about how they fit together that gives me a full picture. Right. So just saying, oh, I've got these things is like me throwing the puzzle pieces on the table and being like, it's a puzzle, right? Does not work. These are not checklists on a list. These are things, these are organisms that have to fit together in order for them to actually be valuable. So I think if you don't, if your message is not clear, if it's not sticky, and there's a number of different ways that you can tell that, like if you're constantly feeling like you're fighting that uphill battle, you're just having to spend more and more and more money to get any return on your marketing, it's not a marketing problem. It's likely a branding problem. You need to make your message more sticky. It's either that maybe it's the audience it's not speaking to your core audience. Maybe the value of the product isn't clear enough. Maybe it's just not compelling enough. Maybe you're not doing enough creatively to get that message through. There's so many challenges that could be there that have nothing to do with where you're spending money, how you're spending money, how much money you're spending, that you have to think about first. So, the first piece of advice that I would give somebody is make sure that you are crystal clear on what your positioning is first, because that's going to save you a ton of money in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, that's such great advice. I think what you're saying too is be a detective. Yes. Or work with someone that can help you be that detective, because we think it's just, oh, spend more money on marketing, when it may be that your marketing isn't really leveraging enough because you don't have the right message, or you're not speaking to the right audience, or have the right offer, or whatever it is.
Right. And be real about the fact that for the vast majority of companies, especially probably the companies listening to this podcast, you will not be able to outspend your competition. So you have to outthink them. Mm-hmm. And you do that with strategy. So,
Yes.
so don't be so quick to get to the tangible things. Don't focus so much on just making something beautiful. I think at the end of the day, your customers will actually forgive you if it's not that beautiful, as long as it speaks to them. But it has to, like I said, reinforce who they want to be, or who they feel they are, what they value, what they want, what, lifestyle they want. Obviously, again, all of that comes back to, well, how are you positioning your brand, right? What is it that you're trying to accomplish in that emotional connection with your customers? So yeah, you need somebody who can think subjectively, not just creatively, subjectively at your brand. And it's impossible to do that as the person inside the brand. Your team members just can't do that, because they have their jobs on the line, so they're not going to be able to tell, they're not going to come to you as a CEO and be like, let me tell you what we're doing wrong as a brand.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. They're going to just keep doing whatever they need to do to keep their jobs. Right. So
Right.
it's the one that is willing to look with fresh eyes at their brand and what opportunities there are, and take risks that will benefit in the long run.
Yeah, that is such food for thought. Definitely. We're so emotionally close to our business that we can't see that maybe the tagline that we have isn't, maybe it makes sense to you, but it's definitely not making sense to others, and all of the different pieces to that. So this has been so brilliant, truly so much to think about here. What are you most excited about in your business, Robyn, as you look ahead?
Yeah. I mean, we've just gone through this rebrand, and I'm so excited because I feel like we've entered the sophomore, junior season of our business. We've been around for 5 years now. We're much stronger in who we are. We've launched our new podcast, Brand F-Ups, which is a very real portrayal of entrepreneurs sharing, their stories, their behind the, back of the napkin stories. And then also those brand F-up moments, those fail forward moments. So it's the vulnerability, that raw emotion. I'm so excited about that launching, and getting to talk to more and more entrepreneurs in that way. I'm excited to start working with, bigger and more brands, frankly, to continue to grow our company and to continue to, build our brand awareness, to continue to make those connections with people, and to, make an impact. I think, like most people, I'm just out there trying to make an impact, trying to make my work and my time and, the commitment that I've had towards this mean something, make it, something that really changes people for the better.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. I love the concept of your podcast, and there's so many mistakes that we make along the way, and there's so much wisdom there, and you've made it beyond the 5-year mark. So congratulations. That's
Thank
a
you.
big hump. You're still here.
Yes.
And you're reinventing yourself, and definitely a great resource for those of you that are listening right now and are ready to have a fresh new look at your business, or just really to be able to, connect with your ideal customer more. So anyway, Robyn, thank you for being here on Women Who Own It.
Of course. Thank you again for having me.
Yes. And so for those of you that are listening, if you enjoyed this episode, if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. And if you enjoyed it, we would love and appreciate a review for Women Who Own It podcast. And until next time, get out there and elevate yourself, because you are worth it. All right. Bye, everybody.